crime research, and that's what there's a department, the police department called Crime Research and Investigation Bureau, CRIB, that handles such cases where you have to work with intelligence. So you do not want to inform the target that you are going to inspect his house because you want to get him unannounced.
Yes.
But Fred, as it is now on all our headlines in the country, online, and in many other media outlets, Governor Natembeya is a subject of debate. And I think, one, as a politician, he's a target, but also probably as part of just ensuring that there's good governance, there could be a valid reason as to why the police went in to do that. We do not want to give it a blank check that is
political.
It's political, because we do have, over the last 10 years of devolution, Fred, we've had serious questions on how governors are managing most of our taxes. And I think there could have been a legitimate reason as to why the police or the ESCC detectives might have gone to his house. Probably they just didn't properly inform the country on what the reason is. And that brought in a lot of allegations. Some people are saying that they were following a bunch of money that is allegedly stored in the governor's house. And I even saw some figures. Some random guy was telling me on the streets that, you know, some dollars and some millions were found. And well, of course, when you saw, they couldn't really get in because there were so many standby policemen.
Yes.
You know, civilian police who are protecting the governor's home. And it really became chaotic because many of them couldn't even substantiate if these are real policemen or not. I guess that is what brought in the resistance that was there. But Fred, that is just part of politics, and let's see what happens after that.
Now, Western Kenya is one of the bases that President William Ruto is hoping to reap a deluge of votes from.
Yes.
Natembeya is now proving to be
the face,
a force within the Western region.
Absolutely.
How do you see this arrest playing out in as far as the emotions that people have towards
Fred,
this
I've said here a dozen times that if you take 5 million votes from the mountain and then you patch it with another 5 million from the Western region, you are at 10 million strong before anything else happens. And so the Western region, I've said it time and again, that is going to be that one region that will decide whether or not President William Ruto is able to do that. Because I said here many times that if you lose 5 million votes from the mountain, you have to look for it elsewhere.
Yes.
And I tell you, it's only in Western region where you can be able to get that, because we have about 3 million to 3.5 million votes, what you call the native votes, those who are residents there. And then we have almost 1.5 to 2 million voters, those you call diaspora voters. Nairobi alone has almost 700,000. Currently, the registered number of voters from the Western region in Nairobi stands at about 511,000, heading towards 600,000.
Yes.
And we still have another 600,000 because the population of the Mlembe Nation in the city of Nairobi is almost 1.2 million people. So if you give it 60-70% of those that are over 18, then you're looking at 800,000 people in Nairobi alone. Never mind, we have big numbers in Nakuru, in Eldoret, as well as in Mombasa. So there's almost a 1.5 million diaspora vote outside the Western region, who can then become part of that coalition, bringing home almost 5 million votes. And I told you here that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has said it before. You remember at one point, I think when they were opening the DAP's new office in Karen, and he was dishing out the numbers, and he was saying, Western, if you bring us 5 million, and the mountain, I go and work on the mountain, we make it 7 million, and Kalonzo gives us 3 million, would be at 15 million. You know, those are the numbers Rigathi Gachagua said. So that's an area of interest, and obviously one of the immediate and quick allies that is had in Western region has been Governor Natembeya, who is increasingly becoming very popular there. Remember, Fred, today as we speak, Senator current Speaker Wetangula has only 5 members of parliament in the Western region. Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi has only 5 members of parliament in the Western region, which are very minor, because then it means anybody that gets 6 members of parliament outweighs them. You understand? And Governor Natembeya is well on his way to becoming that face of the region. And this one doesn't help much, because then it puts him on headline. It gets a sympathy. He now knows that there's some people who can fight for him, and so it only emboldens him as a politician, because then now he realizes that I'm a thorn in the flesh of the government. And so Rigathi Gachagua then, as a strategist, no doubt he has chosen Malala, young Malala who comes from that region. And Fred, I can confirm to you that of all the politicians in the Western region, the only one who has attempted to mobilize that region in a certain way to bring numbers together, because Senator Malala has been doing something called the Cleophas Malala Cup, which originally we used to do it within our county, and the finals would always be a massive thing. Last year he actually did it across the 5 counties, 38 constituencies. So he does have that structure through which he can mobilize people, and I think in the wisdom of Rigathi Gachagua, he believes he's a young man who actually is very daring. He's the only one who's shown guts that he can change his mind and move on. Remember, he was in ODM and from a very strong ODM county, and he still is able to move on from ODM and run as an MC. He was originally an ODM MCA within Kakamega town, for those who know Kakamega town, but then left ODM and proceeded to run with the ANC across 12 sub-counties, because Kakamega is a very big county. To run, for an MCA to compete county-wide is a very expensive exercise, and also physically it's a very intense process. And he still was able to become the senator of that particular county. So he has proven that he's a young mobilizer, if well-resourced. And that's why, and he was part of the people who actually pushed Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi and gave him the confidence to actually join President William Ruto in the 2022 elections. So, and when he felt like he's no longer catered for in the UDA, he had the guts again to exit the party. So you can tell the kind of personality of him being that kind of person who's a risk taker and also a mobilizer. Somebody that will do very well to appease the young voters and has already a structure of mobilization with the Western region. He's not somebody that would say theory. It's proven for those of us who know him. I am not in doubt as to why even Rigathi Gachagua made him his deputy party leader. He very easily becomes the most probable person to run on that DCP ticket in the absence of Rigathi Gachagua. And then that means you're propping a very young and vibrant leader for the Western region, backed by the mountain. Fred, you can be very sure they'll walk out with a lot of numbers, because Western region is a swing vote as they speak today.
Now, Rigathi himself made very troubling statements that there is an attempt on his life, that there's some force that has been formed within, some squad that has been formed within the security agencies, was trailing him with an intention of using a biological agent to, neutralize him. And these are very troubling statements for a former deputy president to say.
Absolutely. And Fred, this is not the first time, maybe if I remind you, the day he was impeached and he gave his press at Karen Hospital, he actually did repeat again that at that particular time that he had been targeted, him and his family, and many a times there were attempts to even poison him, his own statements. So a brave Mau warrior that is now taking the bull by its own. And when you're in a position that he is today, Fred, I do not know much about tomorrow. They say a day in politics is quite a long time. And so 2 years away is a very long time, and maybe things might change. But as it stands today, he poses as the biggest threat to this government in terms of political resources and the political capital that he has, being that he's from the mountain with our, almost 6 million votes. I truly believe that if Rigathi Gachagua is to fight today, if he doesn't become first, he comes second. If we just go by theoretically what the numbers are. And so because the president comes from the mid-rift where they only have a maximum of 2 million votes, a big chunk of the other 2 million, 3 million votes in the rift comes from the Luyas and the Kikuyus that live in that particular region. So with that out of the place, the president the most he can do from his region, the Rift Valley, is 2 million votes. And so you can imagine for somebody that has a head start of 6 million, he's way ahead of time. He only needs just one more running mate and he can hit 10 million. If he's able to get that from the Western region, or he's able to get that from the Lower Eastern, what they're calling Mount Kenya South nowadays. Mount Kenya South, which comprises of Machakos and Makueni, as well as Kitui County. Those are 3 million votes. And Rigathi Gachagua will have hit 10 million votes. Fred, that's a big machinery. And I think any person that wants to compete must be aware. And looking at how the courts are going, Fred, we had suspected international suspects for crimes against humanity.
Yes.
People accused of mass deportation of human beings. The kind of crimes committed by Herod in the Bible and other villains that we as Christian children. Because the way, that's how the charge sheet, you know, for those who follow the case in the ICC, it said mass deportation of human beings.
Yes.
It's a very serious crime.
Yes.
That me and you can sit in this room and plan of how to deport masses of people.
Yes.
It's a completely serious accusation. But you see, as they say, the rule of law, Kenya is a country of the rule of law, and those suspected international criminals were actually allowed to vie because they say they've not exhausted all their avenues to be able to be stopped from going to the ballot. And in law, what we were taught, there's something called law of precedence. You know, courts make decisions based on previous decisions. And that decision was made by the Supreme Court. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta, they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and that's where there was judgment that they were free to run. Honorable Gachagua has not been charged anywhere for even stealing a chicken.
Yes.
Even somebody's chicken alone, leave alone mass deportation of human beings. I can assure you, Fred, he's a free man, and they know it.
Yes.
They know it. Legally, if you look at it, even for me as a legal mind, looking at it, I don't see anywhere anytime soon.
There are no hurdles
to him.
Yes.
The only thing you can say is the prestige of being a deputy president. But legally, you see, what he just needs is that his validity to run.
Yes.
That one is guaranteed by the Constitution, and for as long as the courts remain true to their course and true to their course, you can be sure Rigathi Gachagua will be able to run. Remember, the Supreme Court, which is the ultimate court that's supposed to make that decision, has now already been rattled by this system.
Yes.
They're actually every day praying to be there in the office the next day.
Yes.
You can imagine that they want to make such a decision. Fred, I don't know much, but I pray for the gift of good health.
Yes.
I can assure you, Rigathi Gachagua will be eligible. If President William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta made it to the ballot, then for sure, nothing stops Rigathi Gachagua from being on the ballot. And if that is the case, remember the case hasn't even started at the High Court. And it was supposed to start. But now that the bench was declared unconstitutional, the case has been halted, meaning the Chief Justice has to appoint a new bench. You can imagine what it means. They could be coming a new bench that could give completely different decisions and maybe invalidate the impeachment process because of how the questions that were being raised there, that the process wasn't right. They do not dispute. You remember what happened in 2013? When the court team went to challenge the presidential election, and not 2013, 2017, and when they went there, they'd learned from the previous petition in 2013, and the issue was that what were the pleas that you gave to the bench? And in 2013, they were challenging the numbers, and statistically, the numbers were proved that President Uhuru Kenyatta had won the election. But this time around in 2017, they didn't challenge the numbers; they challenged the process. That if the process is faulty, then you can't possibly end up with a proper result. And I think if that be the case, and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is able to challenge the process of impeachment, then he becomes and the impeachment process it's invalidated by the High Court. That could take a year or two, would be way past our general elections, and maybe he would be president or a prime minister, you never know. But that would have invalidated the whole process, and it would be quite a constitutional moment for us to define what impeachment is. There has been a proposal before, just like the way we were struggling with the issue of the referendum, and we're saying that we need a specific referendum bill that is able to define what the referendum process is supposed to be, and also we needed to have a recall bill to define which is the exact process of how you can recall a member of parliament. I think we also need an impeachment bill so that we can be able to be very clear on the process of how an impeachment can take place, and the rights that impeachment person has to be able to do that, particularly if it's a position of such magnitude of a president, deputy president, and I think a governor. So probably in the future, when we're able to work on an impeachment bill, something that I've always been praying for, so that we can be able, we have a good constitution. We just now need to check the presidency.
And the implementation of the same.
Which is why I'm saying we just now need to check the presidency, because sometimes the presidential powers are what are used to supersede some of these constitution provisions, because you can tell what the court has interpreted, how the court has interpreted the constitution is rightfully, but how do you implement it? Because you had cases of almost 10 times the High Court summoning CS CS Matiang'i at that particular time during Miguna's case, but he never showed up in court. He was clearly in contempt of court. How do you then, and the reason why they did that is because they assumed that he has presidential covers. So we need to checkmate the presidency, and that would be the only ultimate thing that is remaining for us to be able to contain this particular president. So Rigathi Gachagua has a very clear shot at the presidency and is very familiar that the Western region is the sure bet. Fred, I can tell you this. If the mountain is to work, if that's the byline, that if the Western region is to correspond to the gestures of the mountain, I'm telling you, we are starting at 10 million strong, and nobody can stop that.
And the thing is, even if the entire group, entire Western does not move with Gachagua, and you just hive off a small percentage, it dents President William Ruto's race severely. Big time. Because you dent that, then you have Central, then you have Matiang'i, who I pray is going to be the candidate. You have Matiang'i's Kisii, then you have Kalonzo Musyoka with his 2 million.
Almost 3.
Yeah, almost 3, yes.
You remember, Kamas have a very big diaspora population at the coast there.
Yes.
Kwale, Taita Taveta, a lot of them are Kamas.
So almost 3 million. Yeah. So you are talking at a very serious challenge to this presidency.
15 million votes. How do you beat that?
That's
especially huge. If your community, your entire community, even if they vote for you 100%, you're just getting 2 million votes. Where else do you get the numbers to get 13 million?
Because I can assure you, Luo Nyanza doesn't turn out most of the time to vote.
With Raila Odinga on the ballot?
Yes.
Now what if he doesn't?
Yes. It's a very complicated thing. And this cracking down is not helping the president's cause, is it?
You see, and I was going to address this just before you probably came in. I was saying, now they've mainstreamed Natembeya. He's now on the headlines, isn't he?
Yes.
He's now finally there where he's supposed to be.
Yes.
And by profiling him as an opponent, they're making it clear that this is our target in the Western region.
Yes.
It actually emboldens him. And I guess that's the reason why somebody has rushed to court to again stop the IBC process.
Yes.
Because I am telling you, the moment we have an electoral process here anytime soon, the numbers will show. And Natembeya now has a chance, completely. You know, Fred, from where I stay, if I throw a stone, it can hit Natembeya's home. You understand? He lives just across the road in the village where we live there. And many times when I'm home, I get time to speak to him. He knows very well that he's very popular. He knows that he has a chance to take in the region, but he has been a bit hesitant. Maybe now this one is a trigger to wake up and now be a real politician. The way
and if you note, Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula have not spoken.
Yes.
Because it is perceived, it is believed, I wish they had spoken. You speak out, and the region perceives you're defending our boy.
Absolutely.
But they've not spoken, meaning now, even the people on the ground might think they are part of the system that is stopping.
I was just speaking to our local MC at home. And was telling me, you know, part of the other things they're using to intimidate Governor Natembeya is to promise an impeachment. An impeachment process there. Fred, Trans Nzoia County has 25 wards, elected MCAs, and usually the impeachment process is done by elected MCAs.
Yes.
So you need at least 13 MCAs.
Yes.
But you see, we have almost 18 MCAs who are Luyas. Now, some of them were elected on Ford Kenya and Kenya Kwanza allied parties. Some of them were even elected on UDA. But Fred, when it came to the issue of the governor and the speaker and the Nash county seats, they all voted the same way. That's why the governor, the deputy, the speaker are all from Luyas. Never mind, Trans Nzoia is a very cosmopolitan area. I doubt any can set foot and impeach Governor Natembeya. The political consequences are just too much. Some of them were even threatening them, something which they ought not to do. But they're saying, we want to see who will impeach him and where he will go after that. Where he will stay. You understand?
Those are the residents.
Those are the residents. I saw them yesterday saying, you know, when the demos were there, they're saying, we want to see which MCA is that will present the impeachment process. And after that, where will he go home to? You understand? It will be very difficult. The reaction of the people, the reaction of the people yesterday in Trans Nzoia was a significant proof that he really has some passionate supporters. And I think that would be even be exposed more after the by-election if they're able to traverse across the Western region and be able to win some seats. We have some two very important seats in Western, but unfortunately they're not. Unfortunately, they're not in Trans Nzoia, but they're still in the Western region because they're in Kakamega. That would be a good platform for us to prove that we can be able to defeat government. And I'm sure Governor Natembeya, I'll try to do a call today and see if it can get through to him or his brothers and tell him that that is the seat, that is now upon opportunity to be able to flex our muscles against the system so that we tell where the people are, because this is not where the country is supposed to be.
If you are, very briefly,
yes,
if you are the president's advisor, because he has a collage of advisors, if you are the president's advisor, what would you tell him now?
This has not worked before. This is what President Moi did. It only emboldened the opposition. And when the time came for Kanu to face the wrath, the people now had no choice because it was no longer about who is the opponent. A lot of people keep asking us that, you know, who will be president, who William Ruto's opponent? And I keep telling them it's the Kenyan taxpayer. Because once the people decide, there is nobody that can be able to stop them. Fred, the 7 presidents that have lost elections in Africa today, including Edgar Lungu in Zambia there, it's not that they didn't have military and intelligence. In fact, Edgar Lungu jailed Hakainde Ichilema. You know, Hakainde was in jail.
Yes.
It is that the people were just too many. It was just too hard for because Fred, the way our election process is structured is such that results are declared per constituency. So if you are to invest a rigging machinery, you have to do it countrywide, and then you must pray that you have big blocks that can push your numbers. When you do not have big blocks like the Western region and the Mount Kenya East, West, and now South, which now means 10 million people, because Mount Kenya South then comes to 10 million. You then don't have. Those 2 blocks have 15 million voters, Fred. 5 million for the Western region, and now 7 million for the mountain, and then you have 3 million from the Ukambani area. You cannot be able to undo that. So this president has already created enemies in those regions. So you do not want to continue angering the people this much, because then you lack some level of goodwill to even impress others, those who might not, because not everybody likes Natembeya. That those also disagree with him. The same applies to even for former Deputy President Gachagua. There are people even from the mountain region that tell you, I do not support him. But the more you keep exposing them to such threats and intimidation, he gets what you call sympathy vote. If anything, I think former Deputy President Gachagua is slowly implementing the script that this president used to get into power.
Yes.
Be bold enough, checkmate the president, and seek sympathy against the president. And that's what worked for President William Ruto. You remember him going to the mountain and said, the only thing I did wrong was to ensure that the president got re-elected 3 times. What did I do that is wrong? And the mountain bought that. You know, they say, out of sympathy, they say this is total betrayal. Now, at least he was allowed to finish his term. He has not allowed his deputy to even finish half a term. I don't know what to call this. When you are not a one-term president and you are not a half-term, because he barely made it to 2.5. We need to find a new name of what Rigathi Gachagua's term is. Is it a quarter term? You understand? So he didn't even allow him to be able to finish that. That shows serious intolerance, Fred. Because then as a leader, then sometimes you can't be a father, Fred, and you can have sometimes some unruly kids or kids that. But you have to make sure you balance so that you don't go over and above the board, because they still remain your children. So that is the same thing this president ought to have done with Rigathi Gachagua. Now the people who hated him, sort of disliked him in the mountain, have since changed their minds.
True.
I know some of them who were strong Jubilee supporters and who felt like Rigathi Gachagua totally embarrassed the former president and insulted him a lot. Today, I saw them at the launch party of Rigathi Gachagua. They've moved on. You understand? And part of it is because of what they're doing to this kind of people. So they say it is the same appeal that is giving to Natembeya now. I am sure Natembeya now going forward, if he is a shrewd politician, and I think he is. Yesterday I saw him doing a homecoming. There's a homecoming today. From ESCC we are coming home, and the journey cuts through Eldoret all the way to Kitale. I am sure whoever told him that must be Rigathi Gachagua. I've come to like him now. He's a very serious political tactician. Is to cement his support base within the Trans Nzoia region. And I think if anything now, he's now politically emboldened to be able to survive.
Okay, unfortunately, we got to bring down the curtains on the show. Remember, at 9 a.m. we have Your Faith. Your Faith Today with Reverend Kavoy. And then at 2 p.m., we'll have Manukato with DJ Show and Teddy. So until then, stick around. Great stuff coming your way.